Namaste friends and welcome back to my channel Advocate Pramod Bhardwaj Speaks. I'm Advocate Pramod Kumar Bhardwaj, and in today's video we will discuss everything you need to know about rent agreements in India. If you are a landlord planning to rent out your property or a tenant planning to move into a new house, this video will help you understand the legal aspects, essential clauses and important considerations for creating a legally sound rent agreement. So let's get started. A rent agreement is a contract between the landlord lessor and the tenant lessee that defines the terms of the property rental. In India, rent agreements are broadly classified into two types: private residential rent agreements and commercial rent agreements. A private residential rent agreement is when a landlord rents out a property for personal use, while a commercial rent agreement applies when a company, business, or firm leases a property for business purposes. While both agreements serve the same purpose of establishing legal terms, commercial leases are governed by additional laws like Transfer of Property Act 1882, state-specific tenancy laws, and GST provisions in certain cases. Now let's talk about registration. Many people wonder whether a rent agreement needs to be registered or just notarized. The law states that if the lease duration is 12 months or more, it must be registered under the Registration Act 1908, making it legally enforceable and admissible in court. However, for short-term agreements of 11 months or less, registration is not mandatory, and a simple notarized agreement is sufficient. This is why most landlords prefer an agreement of 11 months to avoid registration fees and stamp duty, which can be around 1 to 2% of the total rental amount. However, in legal disputes, registered agreements hold more weight in court. When drafting a rent agreement, it is crucial to include key clauses to protect both the landlord and the tenant. The first and the most important clause is details of both parties, which should include full name, address, and valid ID proof of the landlord and tenant. Along with this, the agreement must specify property details such as full address, size of the property, furnishings, size of the property which is being rented out, and amenities provided. The tenure of the lease must be clearly mentioned, stating the start date and end date. Most agreements are for 11 months to avoid mandatory registration. If the rental term exceeds 1 year, registration is required as per Indian law. If renewal is an option, it should be stated in the agreement along with any rent escalation clause that defines how much the rent will increase after a specific period, usually 5 to 10% annually. Additionally, the monthly rent amount and payment terms should be explicitly stated, including the due date, mode of payment, and late payment penalties. If a security deposit is required, the agreement should mention the amount, refund conditions, and deductions for damages or unpaid rent. Another important aspect is the lock-in period, which means the minimum period for which neither party can terminate the agreement without incurring a penalty. Typically, this is 6 months to 1 year, and if either party wishes to vacate before this period, they may be required to pay compensation equivalent to a few months' rent. Additionally, the termination clause should specify the notice period required for vacating the premises, usually 1 to 3 months. This ensures that both parties have enough time to make alternative arrangements. Maintenance and repair responsibilities must be clearly defined. Generally, the landlord handles major structural repairs, while the tenant is responsible for minor repairs and daily maintenance. The agreement should also specify who will pay for utilities like electricity, water, and maintenance charges. Another critical clause is subletting restrictions. If the tenant is not allowed to sublet the property to a third party, this should be explicitly stated to prevent unauthorized use of the premises. One aspect that is too often overlooked is police verification, which is mandatory in many states. The landlord must submit the tenant's details to the police to avoid any legal complications. Failure to do so can result in a fine of up to 50,000 under law. Another important clause is the force majeure clause, which covers unforeseen circumstances such as natural disasters, government lockdowns, or pandemics, allowing flexibility in rent payment or lease termination in such cases. For commercial lease agreements, additional clauses need to be included. If a business is renting a property, the agreement should specify the exact purpose, such as retail, manufacturing, office use, etc. It should also include liability clauses stating the landlord will not be responsible for any third party damages arising from business operations. Another key factor is TDS deductions. If the rent exceeds 50,000 rupees per month, tenants must deduct stipulated TDS under Section 194I of the Income Tax Act before making payments to the landlord. Now let's discuss registered versus notarized agreements. While notarized agreements are quick, easy, and cost effective, they do not provide strong legal protection. On the other hand, a registered rent agreement is legally binding and can be used in court in case of disputes. For tenants applying for loans, gas connections, or bank account verifications, a registered agreement is preferred as it serves as valid address proof. Before signing a rent agreement, both parties should thoroughly review it and verify ownership documents to ensure the property is legally owned by the landlord. It is advisable to check for any existing disputes or encumbrances on the property. Keeping photographic evidence of the property's condition at the time of moving in can help avoid conflicts when vacating. Also, both parties should keep a signed copy of the agreement for reference. To summarize, a well drafted rent agreement safeguards both the tenant and the landlord by clearly defining rights, responsibilities, and legal obligations. Whether you are renting a house for personal use or leasing a property for business, following the correct legal procedures ensures a smooth and dispute free rental experience. I hope this video has provided you with valuable legal insights on how to create a legally valid rent agreement in India. If you found this information useful, do like, share, and subscribe to my channel for more legal insights. And if you need any legal advice in India or abroad, please contact me on my WhatsApp and email given in the description below. See you in the next video with more important legal topics. Till then, namaste.